Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Girivaradhari, Yasoda Nandana, Jaya Braja Jalandana, Jaya Yasoda Nandana, Jaya Braja Jalandana, Jaya Yasoda Nandana, Jaya Gopi Janaranjana, Jaya Yasodanandana, Jaya Gopi Janaranjana, Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Vihari, 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 Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Girivaradhari, Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Girivaradhari, Yasodanandana Braja Janarandana, Yasodanandana Braja Janarandana, Yasodanandana Braja Janarandana, Yasodanandana Yamuna Tira Vanachai, Yamuna Tira Vanachai, Yamuna Tira Vanachai, Yamuna Tira Vanachai, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Shyam, 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 Jaya Sachinanda, Jaya Gauda Hari, Sachinanda, Jaya Gauda Hari. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya 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 Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Nita Gauda Haribo, 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 Gauda Haribo. Haribo, Nita Gauda Haribo, Nita Gauda Haribo, 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 Nita Gauda Haribo. So my great misfortune, I must go. I will try to listen. Yeah, we want to bring some kirtans here at the yoga studio. We just did here. We can bring that in the studio, no? Yeah. We'll talk about it. Yeah. You'll have your people contact Matthew. Sorry. Nandavapranam Vaishnavas. Coming around town. That's it. Right? I know. It's an embodiment of Krishna. You would be stealing Krishna. You would not leave. You would dwell. Here's two. Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tvadamaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravijantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Pai Payino Virahaka Tarua Juhava Ujjainti Tanmayataya Taravo Vinedus Tam Sarva Bhuta Hridayam Munimanandosmi Bhaktya Hina aparada lakshay chiptasya kamaditarangamati kripa maitvam sharanam pramadam Vinde namaste charanarvindam Tavai vasmi Najivami tvaya vinam Iti vijaya radhe tam nayamam charanti Kripayati adiradha adita seshapadha Kimapada vishishtam pushti maryadvayorme Yadi Bharati Chakinchit Smera Sartitashir Dvijavaramani Pantya Mukti Shuktya Tadakim Shama Sundara Shikanda Shekhara Smera Samaradi Manohara Radhika Rasikamam Kripanidhi Svapriya Charina Kinkarim Karu Prananatha Vishabhanunandini Shri Mukhajarasalola Satapada Radhika Paratale Kitashtitim Tvam Bhajami Rasakinja Shekhara Samvidhaya Dasane Chinam Vipo Prartaye Vrajamahenjanandana Astu Mohan Tavati Vallabha Janma Janmani Maheshwari Priya First offering unlended Danavit pranams to the lotus feet of my worshipful Diksha Devi, Shri Srimati Shamrani Didi, and my Param Gurudevs Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnu Padasta to the Sat Shri Srimati Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and similarly to Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnu Padasta to the Sat Shri Srimati Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and Jagaguru Srila Prabhupada, entire Rupanuga Guru Varga, and all assembled So today we are continuing by the mercy of Shamrani Devi study in Bhagavad Gita. We just begun for anyone who is just dropping in. We're in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is instructing about the eternal soul, Atma Gyan, or Atma Tattva. Okay? And today actually we have a special showing. I have a video that I've gotten from Shamrani Didi to explain Atma Tattva and something about this world. It's very deep and very interesting video. So should I play that now? It's short, okay. We need to set up. Just it has to plug in. I'm so sorry. Yeah, no. Actually, I just lack of preparedness. So I'll play it once and then we'll talk a bit about some stuff and then we'll watch it again. So it seems extra deep. Okay, real quick one. Yes. Oh yeah, hold on. Oh, the live, yeah, they can see. Oh.
Is it possible pause on the live stream?
I don't know.
I can look that up.
Can you check? Yeah. Sorry, she just mentioned that the live stream looks frozen. Maybe so he's there, she's expert.
No, it's good.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah. Good.
Let's go. Audio is kind of low, but it's not that important. Okay. That's it. Adios.
You made that.
Intense. That was actually probably the most mellow one. They're super staunch. I didn't even use the death counter. So it's really funny, but also very serious, like what Rupa is saying. But actually, the small, short example is an example that's used by Srila Prabhupada and many of our acharyas actually very often. But actually, the small, short example is an example that's used by Srila Prabhupada and many of our acharyas actually very often. And so the example is there of the fish that's out of water. And so Krishna gives in many verses of this second chapter, and actually this verse that we're on now. Whoa, what was it saying? Wait, we'll watch it again later. So we're on the 39th verse, second chapter, text 39. And this is actually the first verse that ends Krishna's explanation of something called Samkhya. In this verse, it's mentioned there, Eshate Vihita Samkhye. So he says, thus far I have declared to you the analytical knowledge of Samkhya philosophy. So the Samkhya philosophy is a very logical or intellectual explanation or understanding of the soul, this world, and Krishna or God. And so really, in I think maybe 20 verses or so, it's explained in this purport here that Prabhupada gives very illicit explanation of the difference between matter and spirit. For a couple of weeks we've been talking about this concept. He even says, for the soul, for that which is eternal, there's no change, but for that which is temporary, there's constant change. So he gives a picture of the difference between the material energy and the eternal lasting soul. And so then we see from this example of the fish, in very simple terms, does anybody know what the fish represents? Us. Which part of us? Soul, yeah. The eternal soul. And so the soul, there's a certain group of souls that are called Buddha, conditioned souls. And there's two types of souls. The souls are coming from one energy of Krishna. One energy of Krishna called Tatastha. Tatastha in Sanskrit means in between. And so there's these souls that are called mukta. They're eternally liberated souls. They've never tasted this material world ever. They're just absorbed in their seva to Krishna, and they're drowning in ecstasy of spiritual service. But then there's Bada Jivs. So this is an example of the story of the Bada Jiv, who is enjoying the luxury of the bedroom, but is missing its deep necessity, its deepest fulfillment, it's missing that, it's not finding that. And so it's a very simple example, but actually proves to be very, very deep and very profound if we meditate on this simple example. And that's why she wanted me to show it, because it actually starts to really set in that, oh my God, I actually am this fish, and I'm trying to enjoy this air conditioning, and I'm trying to enjoy this luxury food and this bedroom, but actually soon I'm gonna die, like that. Very yeah, and so I really like at the end where it says it simply needs to be back in its water. That's what it needs. It simply needs to be back in its water. So there's a lot of confusion in the material energy about what's what, where to go, what to do, where is my water, where is my eternal water. And so there's a famous verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, one of our scriptures. It says, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagavana Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasade Bhai Bhakti Lata Bij. And so Brahmanda, Brahmanda is a singular universe that we're in. So from Krishna, from Mahavishnu, so many universes are coming from the pores of his, all of his pores, and each one of those is referred to in Sanskrit as a Brahmanda. Brahmanda. And so Brahmanda Brahmite Konya Bhagyavan. This is Bhagyavan, it's not Bhagavan, it's Bhagyavan, which means actually very fortunate. Yeah, like sometimes actually Shrimati Radharani, she's sometimes referred to as Bhagyavati, because she controls Krishna the most. So sometimes like when she leaves Ras, it's described she's Bhagyavati because she's so fortunate because she controls Sham Sundar like that. Very beautiful poetic thing. So this is Bhagyavana Jiva, a very fortunate jiva, going through the course of the Brahmanda, through so many different bodies. Because something that we've accumulated when we've come into this world is called a subtle body. We have an energy body and then a gross material body, as we know. This comprises the system of us. And this subtle body, actually, we've had since the beginning we've been in this material world. For millions of years, we've had the same subtle body, actually. And according to this subtle body, all of the desires and consciousness that it creates, then our body becomes reciprocated accordingly. So if we have a tigerish consciousness, we actually get a tiger body to fulfill that desire. It's Krishna's very simple system of karma, and actually to fulfill our own needs. We spoke a few weeks back about this Upanishad verse, Anandam Brahmite Va Na Vibeti Kaman. It explains that, well actually no, it's Nitya Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitanam. It's explaining the position of, this is all Samkhya. I'm just doing a little recap of the last so many verses so we can kind of move into the next subject. But that Krishna is like almost like the central planet, and all jivas are orbiting in some way, and he's fulfilling all of their desires. Bibeti, come on. And so like that, we can see the position of Krishna and we can see the position of our soul. So through so many of these bodies, which is likened to like a snapnistan, then you see it's like the predicament of the fish, So then Brahmandi Konya Bhagavana Jeev Guru Krishna Prashadi Bhai Bhakti Lata Bija. So we spoke extensively actually on this Bhakti Lata Bij last week. So by the mercy of Krishna, Krishna is actually always there. Krishna is one of the expansions of Krishna is called Paramatma. A word we throw around a lot, but Krishna is considered there's one Sanskrit term, Sarva Shakshi. Sarva Shakshi. Shakshi is witness, and Sarva is everything, Sarva Shakshi or Sarva Darshi. Darshi is a glance. Yeah, Darshan. Like Darshan is when they get to see us. And so Krishna is actually, we're always within Krishna's darshan. So he's always there with us, like the sun is shining and actually guiding us. So it's explained like a child. If there's something wrong with the child and the child's crying, and the parents or whoever's taking care of the child, they put him in so many different positions, but still the crying's not stopping. They say, we don't know what actually is wrong with the poor kid. He's just crying no matter what his situation. So let us call in a doctor. And then if a qualified doctor can come and they say, oh, actually his deeper symptom is this, give him some whatever, chlorium or something, and then then he's pacified. So it's kind of like this actually, that Krishna is like a doctor for every living being in this entire existence. That he knows actually our water. He knows actually what we need perfectly for us. And really what that is our dormant love for him and our dormant relationship that's there. The relationship of our soul that is it's actually the Bhakti Laka Bij is the actual small particle of the what is meant to be the fully blossomed spiritual form of ourselves in relationship to Lord Krishna. We spoke on that last week. Yeah. So anyhow, we see that through the course of wandering through all the Brahmandas, what really happens is that Krishna brings us into contact with a guru, with someone who knows the absolute truth. And that's how we actually get linked to Krishna genuinely. And so as Krishna, this concept of guru, it's explained that Krishna comes to guru and guides through guru in mainly two ways. From within, as what's called Chaitya Guru, or Paramatma Chaitya Guru, or the super soul. And then externally as Acharya Guru, external guru to guide. But conditioned by our mind and our senses, it's a little hard to 100% gain pure accurate dictation from within of what's going on, because sometimes we might, yes, this is what I want, this is the Lord's sanction. Sometimes, Krishna actually he can really, really guide us, and he does, but it's safe bet that we seek guidance, divine guidance from someone who actually Krishna has brought us to that person. It might seem that we have come to a spiritual master, but actually Krishna has brought us to this universe to come under the shelter of that personality. And so like that. And even there's later in Bhagavad Gita a verse, Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sanivishto, 15th chapter, Krishna mentions something that's very deep. And he says that he's actually I'm in charge of the remembrance and forgetfulness and knowledge of the mental capacity of all the jeeves. So he actually is giving us the consciousness to be able to practice spiritual life. He's giving us the inspiration and the know it to be able to have an inspiration to come here and participate in sadhana. That it's called Krishna Seva Vasana. The desire to serve Krishna is stimulated within by Krishna himself. So like this, we're in a sensory container that's being governed and dictated by Lord Krishna all the time, just like Shamrani Didi was explaining just recently, that at some point she was very angry. And she wrote this book that was born of her anger at this certain aspect of philosophy that was incorrect. And then as soon as she finished the book, the moment she said all of it went away, and she was like, had this extreme peace come over her. And she realized, oh, Prabhupada, my Gurudev, and Krishna, they stimulated this anger within me to do this certain service. So we see that actually Krishna is there very, very intimately conducting and guiding our sensory experience in this world. This world is even described as the external form of Lord Krishna. And before this external energy is manifest, Radha and Krishna are existing all expansions in the spiritual world. While it's maintaining, he's Sarvashakshi, he's controlling everything. And then when it's wrapped up to, he's still existing there. So we see actually beyond the temporary changing illusory energy, what really is existing is Radha and Krishna no matter what. So in some way, they are the only thing that really exists. But still, we're experiencing their energies. And so, how do we think? What do we think? Sorry, I'm getting a little philosophical, but yeah.
Good. I kind of want to go back to the question. Back to the fish example. For instance, what if the fish has the awareness that this AC is killing me, but still doesn't have the will to jump back in the water, if that makes sense. It's in this state of awareness that this is bad, but there's still the addiction. or like the like longing to enjoy, even though it's not enjoyable and it's painful. Like, what does Krishna say about this? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, but at the same time, your example has to be specified a little bit, like specifically for a devotee.
Yeah.
For a devotee who's connected. Yeah. So actually, kind of getting there. So there's a lot of verses actually that speak on this about how we're talking about actually the karmic system, and so then once someone comes into contact with real true Krishna consciousness, it's described that their karma is going on in this world, but something happens where actually like a fan gets boom unplugged. So you see, but the karmic cycle still keeps going on for some time. So you'll see that in the lives of a sadhak, of a spiritual practitioner, still so many things will come up. And actually, a lot of times as a byproduct of doing sadhana or intensity sadhana, actually more will come. And even seva will pull so much out of us. And so actually that isn't a symptom of our karmic enjoyment, but a releasing and a purging and a purifying effect actually we're undergoing. So when someone's come into Krishna consciousness, they start an entirely different, track. They're no longer within just the very simple karmic system. Now they're specifically under the guidance and guardianship of Krishna, even though everyone already is. But okay, now this person is going to come through a specific channel to me, essentially. And so, unless that person, for whatever reason, they really don't desire so much more, and then they just turn back fully to the illusory energy, which happens, and Krishna eventually, the whole thing will work out. So there's some verses, actually. I'll find one that comes to mind. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's really encouraging. It's really encouraging, actually. And so we can actually go to this next verse that you see, 240. He says, "In this endeavor there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear." So right here, actually, in some ways, he's addressing, like, not exactly your answer, but your feeling. It's like, and Prabhupada explains very beautifully in this purport. He says, 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent results, so that the next beginning is from the point of 2%, whereas in material activity without 100% success, there is no profit. So you see actually how significant and deep what we're doing is. And interestingly enough, even in the last verse, Krishna mentions something very subtle, and he says buddhi yoga. And he says, I've explained all this Samkhya. This is a little technical thing, but we'll go there. I've explained all this Samkhya, this philosophy, to teach you about the absolute and stuff like this. And then he says, he gives some verses right before these verses, and he says, do your work in this world, but don't be attached to the results. And so he's explaining something that's actually called a nishkama karma yoga. So he's suggesting, do your work in this world without any attachment to the results, and then you won't incur sin. And then he says, do this buddhi yoga. So then he's actually suggesting take to bhakti yoga. And so this nishkama karma yoga, that even still doesn't have a permanent lasting effect. But the pure process of bhakti, which actually beautifully and interestingly enough is just hearing and chanting about Lord Krishna, has a permanent effect with our soul. And so there's no loss or diminution from this engagement, and automatically the byproduct of engaging in bhakti yoga process is that someone becomes alleviated of the fear. And the most dangerous type of fear is that fear of going into the animal species and going, through the system of hell and going, karmic thing and losing one's bhakti. But actually not possible to lose our bhakti. There's one possible way we'll get there, and whereas everything else in this world, like with the fish example, no matter how we set up the bedroom, it's not our natural habitat. So it's not our natural habitat, and you'll see that whatever wealth is accumulated and gained in the karmic process is at the time of death is gone. So we like actually Gurudev, our Srila Narayan Maharaj, sometimes he mentions in some of his purports I read, and every time I read it, it hits me so deep. And he says this the wealth of this is. He says one drop of this wealth is more valuable than all the wealth in the world. Sometimes he'll mention that, and I go, oh my Krishna. So actually, we're so fortunate. We are the Bhagavad Jeev. This verse is actually the story of our life. How we have been through so many experiences, and like we don't remember our husbands and wives and pets and families of the lives we've had before, And so you'll see in this next verse after this, he says, those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. So actually here, interestingly, Krishna, he's painting a really beautiful picture in my perspective. He's saying, take to Bhakti Yoga. It's more superior to Sankhya and Nishkama Karma Yoga. Take directly to loving devotional service to me. There's no loss or diminution in doing this. Whereas everything else, there's complete loss. And he says, so be resolute. He says the people on this path are resolute. And those who are many branched are irresolute. And he says, Vyavasayatmaka buddhi. Ekaha kuru nandana. Ekaha. Eka means one. One-pointed. One-pointed. And so our Gurudev Srila Narayan Maharaj would say, be one-pointed like the gopis were to Krishna. Like this. And there's also a definition that's given for Shraddha. Who knows the definition of Shraddha? Faith. Yeah, faith and bhakti. So our Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he used to say that an expanded definition of Shraddha is that by performing devotional service to Krishna, then every other subsidiary activity is accomplished. Because we actually see that Krishna's in control of this material world and the relationships and in control of the sensory experience and the intelligence of every jiva. So actually our relationship with Krishna and how we're approaching him and relating and serving him is, that's really the thing. And if that is fulfilled, then everything else is fulfilled. So that is really an aspect of this fish purport, is difficulty and I'm not in my position. And so that water is our devotional service to Lord Krishna. And so Prabhupada uses the example of the watering a plant. Watering a plant. He says if you want to water the plant, then you don't put water on all the leaves or the flowers. It's not only does the plant not get nourishment, but actually what happens is the flowers, they all get moldy. So you see in this world that we try to, have this engagement, have this relationship, have all these things like the child. I'm looking for what is my necessity. But then over and over and over, this purport is being given over and over and over. Your water is Krishna. Your water is Krishna. And so Krishna says that's the root of the plant. And so by watering that, everything automatically becomes harmonious and everything becomes nourished. Everyone feels nourished. And we kind of give more, elicit different types of bhakti. And so he brings up this verse 10:10, which is a very often cited verse, but it's been coming up for me. And it's just so nice and nourishing to hear. Chapter 10, text 10. Actually, these 4 verses are called the Chatur Shloki of Bhagavad Gita, the 4 core verses of Bhagavad Gita. 10:10. Tesam satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. So I think Prabhupada also mentions this verse because also Krishna says buddhi there. And he says that to those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. So it's actually very, very deep verse because it's showing bhakti in relationship to Krishna and our position in relationship to him. And also that we don't have to have our bhakti and our advancement in spiritual life is actually not dependent on our material qualifications or anything like that, our performance or our because in that example of Krishna's kind of weeding out in some ways Sankhya and then weeding out also Niskama Karma Bhakti, working without the desires for fruitive results, and he's weeding out Gyan Yoga also and establishing Bhakti. And then so Prabhupada puts in this verse to show actually what is the path. And so I thought this verse is very, very powerful for all of us to take away and meditate on, about how according to our sincere endeavor, there's the reciprocation from Lord Krishna. So according to the sincerity of our attempt to serve with love, then Krishna specifically is giving the facility and the intelligence. And it goes back to what I was mentioning about how actually our consciousness is being also dictated by Krishna. The inspiration to do something is coming, Sarvasya Janam Kriti. And this verse is also very intimately connected to the Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagavana Jeev. By Krishna's mercy, then one comes to Sri Guru. And so once someone comes to Sri Guru, then what do we do? What do we do? And he says, so by Krishna's mercy, one gets Guru, and then by Guru's mercy, one gets Krishna. Okay, so how do we undergo that process? And so then that Krishna also mentions here in this Bhagavad Gita another verse, Tadvidi pranitat pariprashnena sevaya upadakshanti te jnananam jnaninas tattva darshanaha. He gives 3 qualifications or like consciousnesses for the jeeves to take in relationship to approaching a spiritual guru or a person who's coming as a representative of the Lord. Pranipat is humility. And right in the beginning of this Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna shows that example. He takes shelter of Krishna. We just read, before he gave instruction, Arjuna is bewildered about his duty. So he's just like that baby, wah, wah. What do I do? And he goes to the doctor. I'm taking under shelter of you. I'm bewildered about my duty. I'm confused. Oh, Krishna, you please instruct me. So he's showing an example of Pranipat. Pariprashna is sincere, honest inquiry. Not just like a bargain inquiry, but like it actually has a lot to do with that verse that we read earlier about the resolution of purpose. An internal resolution of purpose. This is my approach. I'm approaching you because I have some genuine desire to learn about the absolute truth, and I'm essentially having the fish in the bedroom, and I want to get to the water. That's the Pariprashna. And then really, really importantly is the Seva, our dedication into the service of that spiritual personality. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is very famous for giving this example. And Prabhupada also gave this example that without these symptoms of humility, determination, and dedication, without these things, we're like on the outside of the absolute truth, or getting actual what's called realization. So this is why you'll see actually the path of Gyan is like sometimes actually very like shunned upon, and it's kind of bewildering because here we are, we're literally speaking about knowledge, getting knowledge, like at Srila Bhakti Priyan Keshava Goswami Maharaj, the like bathroom is called like Gyana section or something like that. You remember that? Mm-hmm. So the reason is that accumulation of knowledge just with our mind and our mental facilities, it doesn't actually imbibe the humility, determination, and dedication, and the right consciousness of approach. Knowledge is very powerful, and that's why Krishna instructed the Sankhya Yoga for the last 15 verses. So that's why it's not that knowledge is unimportant, because Krishna instructed the Sankhya Yoga for the last 15, 20 verses to to Arjuna all about the temporary of this material world, how it's like a mushroom, it comes up and then it goes. So many accretions, so many dissolutions. All the trees and all the planets and stuff are gonna go and then come back again. And but the eternal soul is, it's not bound by time or space or birth and death, nothing like that. So it's not that it's unimportant, but without this proper consciousness, especially the seva, then Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta, and Srila Prabhupada, they gave the example that it's like a bee trying to get into the honey of a jar. But the cap's closed, and that the bee lands, but it's not actually in the honey. So it's been revealed by our acharyas and also revealed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chanadapi Sunichana Tadopi Sahishana Manina Manadena, that our consciousness actually in our approach to Sri Guru and Krishna is actually very, very significant thing. Very significant thing. And that's kind of our real path to our water. Our water, Actually, it's interesting with the water example because I know this is like not maybe appropriate for Harikata, but like used to have like this joke with like some friends, and we'd say like you have to chant to like stay hydrated, And I felt like Krishna was always like showing these things to me when I was driving on the highway and stuff, and he'd be like, "Stay hydrated," and all these water bottle examples. So when I was watching, we have a video that we showed in the beginning. Shamrani Didi wanted me to show. I'll show it again. About this fish who's out of water, and so yeah, the main other way we can come into the water really is by the association of devotees who are connected to Guru. Otherwise, it's very confusing to know what is what, to get our information. It's like so many suggestions of what to do come from so many sources, and when we don't have that mercy, it's amazing how you just don't know. You don't know any better, and so we're so fortunate. We are the Bhagavad Jiv, to have some association, to have a compass, like actually, Srila Sri Ramanuj has this very beautiful thing in the beginning of his Shri Guru and Shri Grace, where he says that like Guru is like a manifestation of eternal joy and happiness, and is like the North Star that has risen in for those who are lost in the desert, because the North Star like actually guides one who they can't see anything, so then they can see, that's my direction. So this is similarly Guru's coming like that, and so Krishna's coming, and Krishna's giving the buddhi, the real intelligence, not just mental gyan, but the actual. Another aspect of this Tesam Satita Yuktanam verse is that it's very actually deeply connected to Shraddha, because not only is he says, I give them the intelligence by which they can come to me, which also means that he'll do everything for us at the perfect time, He'll lay out our path, and so there's also deeper faith there. And so he'll give us the attention, and according to our sincerity, like I said, he's Sarva Shakshi, Sarva Darshi. He cannot but back us up, and he'll be there. He's omniscient. He sees everything, and he'll clear the way, and that will increase our surrender. And more like this, we're coming closer and closer. And so yeah, that's our fish. That's the fish, and our way of coming into the water. And anybody, any questions? Example? Oh yeah. I have it. It's okay. I already played it once. I'm gonna play it again.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. Thanks, Prabhu.
Thank you very much for that. You already phrased the Sanskrit for Dinata Pisamichana.
Yeah.
But for some of the new people, do you mind sharing the version? Because also that homes in to, especially when you're new.
Yeah.
Especially when you mentioned chapter 10, which I really needed to hear again today. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. It reminded me of like how unique my journey into bhakti really was, And anytime I hear someone's story, it's very eccentrically similar in the respect of it's not the same at all. And then coming back to my current present of my kind of like being in bhakti is staying focused to Krishna and not looking. I mean, obviously we look at our sisters and our brothers and other people and their experiences, but then how important it isn't to make any judgment, any critiques. So then coming back to Nada Pisunichana helps one be a bit more resilient and not judgmental, and being more tolerant than a tree, and more humble than a blade of grass. So if you could just explain Nada Pisunichana and else in that merit, that would be much.
Yeah, well, actually, nice, beautiful question, and what you're saying actually makes me think about how we can see this verse also in relationship to other people. You know, like Gurudev's Harmony book, he says like you don't have the authority to cast instruction upon others. You know, that's like I can do that. And it's like a very simple thing, but actually very deep also, because it makes me think what you're saying. We can see actually. I mean, the whole thing is like, in my understanding and perspective, especially with this verse and these traits and these qualities and realization and all this stuff, it's not just a one day thing, you know. Okay, now I've realized, Trinada Pisunichana. You know, it's an unfolding and a deepening of realization through this process I was explaining, and but by having more understanding actually of Krishna's participation in everything alleviates our desire to feel like we're in control of everything, because he is the one who's dictating and giving everything to a much higher extent than we can even fathom, because it's like the invisible hand of God concept, how he's doing everything for everyone's best wish. Actually, there's this verse in fifth chapter Bhagavad Gita, very famous verse, Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram Sahridam Sarva Bhutanam Gyatva Mam Shutam Shantim Richiti, which means, Prabhupada called this the peace formula. Krishna says that one attains eternal peace by realization that Krishna is in control of everything. He's situated in the heart as the friend of everyone, Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam, and he's the enjoyer of everything. So Trinada Pisunichana is a verse that's coming from the instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a manifestation of Krishna who was in this universe 500 years ago to taste the love of his feminine counterpart Srimati Radharani, and also to distribute love of God to all the living entities. And he gave a series of instructions. He also spoke to many disciples like Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, like this. But he also gave verses about chanting this Hare Krishna mantra, which is our bread and butter. And he gave a consciousness in which we should chant. That's what she's asking. I mentioned this verse, Trinada Pisunichana, Tada Pisunichana, Amanena Manadena Kirtanya Sada Hari. So Trinada Pisunichana means to really chant the holy name of Lord Krishna and Srimati Radhika. One should consider themselves lower than the blade of grass that's stepped on by all the material people of this entire world. So someone should see themselves actually as very insignificant, and that actually Prabhupada Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he mentions this verse actually, that one should see themselves as a disciple of the world, as a disciple of the universe. It's very actually that kind of Uttama stage of consciousness. And this Trinadapi verse is actually kind of like an Uttama stage of consciousness. It's actually very, very high thing, but still, and that's why I said it's like a gradual thing, And humility is something that grows along our bhakti. Humility is not a stagnant thing. Actually, Srila Gurudev Narayan Maharaj, he would mention that bhakti and humility are like the same thing. Because according to the development of bhakti, more realization of Lord Krishna is coming. That makes us humble. So I've actually, even great Vaishnava has told me we only actually become truly humble in really high stages of bhakti, like ruchi and bhav, when real humility is coming, when the innate symptoms of pure love are starting to shine and manifest through our atma and our realization, but still some adjustments coming that we can have some understanding that actually everything belongs to Krishna. Like, so Trinadapi Sunichana is one that should consider themselves humble as a blade of grass, and then tolerant as a tree. So a tree is, so many people are taking the fruits of the tree, coming first the shade of the tree, and the tree never fights back, hey, you owe me for that fruit, give me back my fruit. Tree's not like that. So the tree's very giving, and so it's said that the Vaishnavas are very compassionate and very giving. Everything they have is used in the service of others. So humble, tolerant. Amanina means pridelessness. They actually feel themselves that they belong to Krishna and everything belongs to Krishna, nothing belongs to myself. Pridelessness. Not that I am someone, I have something big, that's ahankar. And then even our realization, actually, we find that because, like I was explaining, Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sani Vishto, from me come knowledge, remembrance, forgetfulness. Krishna is giving our conscious and our inspiration that even any amount of quote-unquote so-called realization that's been given to us has been given to us actually by Swarup Shakti, by Shraddha Devi herself, by Bhakti Devi herself. And so it actually, even that doesn't belong to us, because we say, boom, I got some realization, yeah, baby, but actually even that, we're not the owner of that, we're not the owner of anything, serious. So pridelessness, amanena, and then manadena means respectfulness. Manadena is one is very respectful of all living beings, knowing well that they are the residing place of Lord Krishna. That Krishna is in the heart of every living being. Krishna is in the heart of every living entity. And actually this entire material energy is the Shakti of Krishna. Everything has come about by the desire and will. Everything is a manifestation of the desire and will of Radha and Krishna, and reciprocating with the desires of the jiva. And so, like, we're learning this verse in the morning. Shamarani Didi is having us learn this verse before we get out of bed. We actually ask for forgiveness from Mother Earth for putting our feet on her holy body. It's very beautiful, actually. This is very Trinadapi, actually, some realization that actually this is the divine energy. And Krishna even says in Bhagavad Gita, Daivihi Yeshaguna Mayi Mama Maya Duratyaya. Actually, this verse is very beautiful and profound. I don't remember where it is, the 6th chapter, I think, but it's connected also to this Tesam Satata Yutanam. He says, this divine energy of mine, he calls it Daivi. He says, very difficult to cross over. So we're very difficult to cross over, but by my grace, very easily, Prabhupada gives an example of like an ocean becomes like shrunk to like a hoof print. So we're in the, what's called, there's a Rota path, I've spoken about this, but a Rota path and Virota path, ascending path and descending path. There's also in perfection in Vrindavan, there's different jivas. There's Nitya Siddha jiva and there's Kripa, or there's Sadhana Siddha jiva, and then Kripa Siddha jiva. So we are in the category of our final perfection, our ultimate aspiration, and our fate, because it's been planted in there in our manufacturing, our eternal relationship with the divine couple. But that's coming all through Kripa, and that's also why this consciousness is so important, because it's coming through mercy. It's not that by our endeavor we're achieving something, but actually by our negative increase in our humility, increase in our society, sadhana, and or not sadhana, but sincerity, and specifically something comes by our increased endeavor. This buddhi that Krishna gives is increased. In Sanskrit, it's called utkanta. Utkanta means eagerness. This buddhi that's given, he gives the knowledge by which they can come to me. He gives more eagerness for seva. But the Krishna seva vasana, which is the desire to serve Krishna in the heart, that's non-different than this bhakti lata bij, becomes watered. It becomes hotter. It becomes faster. More desire, more yearning. So actually, we're in what's called the virota path, descending path. So according to our utter desire and utter need and want of the water, then actually Krishna gives it to us. So in that way we're attracting grace, we're attracting mercy, which is coming from Swarup Shakti. Srimati Radhika herself, who is Bhakti, is Bhakti Devi. She comes like that, and not so we can have and own and control, but so that we can have love more to serve. One starts to become more dependent on that. And so this Trinadapi Sunichana verse is speaking kind of about this, this funnel, and it goes all the way. You see that at the top, the highest regions of Bhakti, Krishna's intimate circle of his lovely cowherd girls, they actually exhibit the highest extent of this humility, dainya, and like Venugita, like they're saying, if only I could take birth as a deer who gets such close association with Krishna, Krishna's patting, and even the husband of the deers freely going up alongside, the Krishna Sar, they're called, and the birds, they get close, such association who are like saints, great sadhus in this world, Shuka, Narada, Uddhav, who've taken birth to associate and hear Krishna's flute. And the rivers are the beloveds of Krishna. They offer lotus flowers directly to Krishna's feet. If only we could take birth. What to speak of that flute, that's resting on the lips of Lord Krishna, always staying by his side. So their humility is there with their bhakti is so high, and they're real, like they're speaking like this, being very real. So there's levels to the Trinadapi Sunichana thing,
If you don't mind me sharing really briefly,
Yeah.
Just the experience, if I can just put it into an example of why I love this shloka in particular, is I was fortunate enough to be in a temporary temple for a whole year, but it came to an end, and I was just emotionally distraught because of the space. But one brahmachari came to me, and I was just crying and angry, and all the emotions coming for like an ending. And then the Prabhu called Tarun, he was like Narayani, it's okay. Krishna has got more plans for us, right? So we have to accept that this has come to an end. And I was just like, but you haven't made enough like Lakshmi for like the book distribution, so we can't keep our rent and everything else like that, and all these mundane issues.
Yeah.
And then not until I left, and then I basically have met some incredible souls who have been that fish that you've explained.
Yeah.
And if my association didn't come across these people, because I was still like serving in the temporary ashram, those lives wouldn't have been helped. Basically, I feel like my presence, my Guruji sent me to them, and other situations being able to explore. So it's just trusting in the process, and like you said, allowing the humility to come, as I kind of almost we shared the anger part of my uncalm nature.
Yeah.
And yes, I hope that helped someone, because totally not perfect, constantly learning and understand, and you've just unraveled a whole other dimension of this same sloka, so thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. So nice, and thanks for speaking so openly about all that. Yeah, also like what you're adding a dimension, I'm just thinking of how actually surrender is in this verse too, Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Contributions, thoughts? Jonathan, Prabhu?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, it seems like there's, so many different kinds of seva that you can that you can do based on like where you're coming from in your heart. And I was just thinking, like the business person, how they can like have a mission. Like you have this aunt Lad who's bringing like Ayurveda to the West, and I was thinking like, what's the difference between a person who makes a bunch of money and has like a life purpose? How can he make that into serving Krishna? Obviously, like if he's giving everything that he has to the charity and the cause beyond what he needs for himself. Because when you're talking about like serving Krishna, I'm thinking like, well, what does that actually look like?
You could be like on the board of the temple and like go and do all the business operations for the temple, and just do it like as like the seat, like the person do all that for the temple. That's easy. Again, you just offer your nature over to the temple, and that's how it then gets purified. And like by doing it for the temple, you then actually it gets like amplified thousands of times. You get thousands of times better than you ever thought you could be. And every resource that you ever imagined you could need just falls at your fingertips, and it's insane. And your all of those desires that you have had to fulfill because it was your nature of what just had to do, it's just naturally being fulfilled like a river flowing to the sea.
Yeah, that totally makes sense because everybody's gonna have a different way that they can contribute to the temple. What about people who are like they don't know about Krishna, but they're doing it for like Lord Jesus or Lord Buddha, but they're doing it with like their purest motive, and they don't chant Maha Mantra either, but they're doing it from like it seems like a very pure bhakti. So that's what I was wondering too.
Yeah, I can't comment on like exact specific situations because they're always different, But there is different degrees of, when we say serve Krishna, like we were just speaking even at the beginning, there's Nishkama Karma Yoga, that Gurudev's explaining the difference between engaging our activities and offering those results versus directly Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and reciting. There's different actually effect and outcome. And actually there's so many more things, Karma Mishra Bhakti, Gyan Mishra Karma Mishra Bhakti, Aropsita Bhakti, all this stuff is actually like charted out by our Srila Narayana Maharshi. Actually so mercifully explained all this stuff, because even in Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, he doesn't actually elaborate so much on some of these nuances. Like even in this last verse, like he doesn't actually lay out some of the differences that Krishna is explaining. Krishna is explaining engaging in material activity with no attachment to the results of those actions, but he's not explaining direct heartfelt devotional service from the heart for the happiness of Krishna, which is an entirely different thing, which can be branched under the same thing. So actually, we want to come to something called Shuddha Bhakti, which is so high thing, but actually it's doing our activities exclusively for the happiness of Krishna and Krishna's satisfaction. And Srila Rupa Goswami, a great saint, disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he wrote a famous verse, Anya Bilasita Sunyam Jnana Karmani Anavritam Anukuyena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhaktir Uttama. So there's different, let's say, categories or stages of engagement and service of Krishna. And so there's very subtleties and nuances, exactly like what you're wondering. I wonder if there's like, and so there is, but we kind of have a short time. And the other thing I wanted to mention, one thing briefly that Srila Gurudev mentions in this verse about the resolution of purpose. He says something really cool. He says that we should become so resolute in that devotional service. Bhakti is the only true thing to give us water, that like even if Brahma comes to us and says you should take up like a karma or gyan or something, then we should say like no thanks, And so yeah, he says we should have a lot of faith in this process that's been given to us, that really truly it's going to take us to our eternal spiritual life. So go to Premanandi. You guys want to watch the video one more time?
fish out of water.
Krishna and I didn't see.
What? Baby's coming down too.
We're so happy to see this.
Kirtan? Yeah, one more time.
How long is it?
Like a minute.
1 minute.
Fish out of water. Jeez. They redid this. She's shortly back. It's showing that the fish needs water. Come on, let it play.
Go, Premanandi. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
I think there was an old school version, like from the 80s that.
It's the exact same thing to me. She's like, it's not gonna use that word.
What?
I told you it's- no.
Do you want to do 5 minute Krishna? And then you said we come down to everything lesson before Krishna. I don't think everyone knows. Oh, Haribol, everybody.
Hi, Krishna.
Hi, Krishna. Great class.
What?
Video.
Thanks. I showed it at the beginning too.
So everybody, this is Shilokanath Prabhu. He is our, what's the word?
He's the head of operations.
Head of operations for Colorfest. Yes, we've done, him and I've done lots of festivals even together before Colorfest. We lived in Alachua, and 3 years ago, and I said I really want more. I have dreams to do a Colorfest. Couldn't do it without him. To see him in action on Saturday morning, with the stage and hanging banners and setting up the kitchen
And the fencing.
and hooking up water and bringing a whole kitchen and a sink.
Maybe one on that.
Oh.
We're on live.
Oh, you can stop it. Anyways, and this is Anuragini,
Okay, bye.
his
Bye.
divine partner, and